And we're off.
Welcome to the Perspective Chasers podcast.
That's brought the customers in already. Sign up for Dave's OnlyFans, link below.
It's actually called Only Calves.
That's because it's all he has to offer.
$3.99 a month, one picture a month.
Just one calf, just lefty. Gotta go premium if you want both.
Nah, lefty's reserved for dudes and nuts. My favourite one.
Alright, so coming up on this episode.
But we fell off.
Just a touch.
Oh, Jesus. Absolutely fell off, man. We are a wagon.
What'd you call me?
You're a wagon wheel, mate.
Right.
The ASMR was free. This has got to be up with one of the best starts we've ever had. There's a hot start, this, isn't it? Bloody hell.
Well, at some point you may know why you clicked onto this episode, but
OnlyFans joke, these nuts. Jeez.
They're definitely here for these nuts. That's the only reason they clicked on these.
Lefty's the only one, mate. Right, he's a
Slouching.
little bit, I mean, bit shy, bit reserved.
I'm not gonna lie, for me, righty's lazy and lefty does all of the work.
Lefty's a workhorse, man. Powerhouse.
Like,
Righty's lazy.
why is that?
Work shy. Good
If you-
for nothing.
If you know, comment below. I think we'd all like to find out. But, yeah.
And it has the audacity to have a little bit of pain afterwards, you know what I mean? It's just like, you've done nothing.
Do you know what? I'm not one for naming my boys, but if I had to give it a reference, it'd have to be the Hulk. Because, bro, righty only gets involved when shit's drastic. Like when
Drop your
when
ego
we're
at the
like,
door about the Hulk.
not from like the ego perspective.
Do you know what I call Lefty? Thanos. That's what that sounded like to me. Just like, let me go straight up top.
No,
because like that and it's over, you know what I mean?
No, because you've taken the wrong aspect of the Hulk's characteristic. It's a lot, like in this instance, or in most instances, like the Hulk tries not to get angry. He tries not to get involved. That's righty for me. He's like leaves it all out to lefty or whatever.
But you can't be calling it lazy.
Oh, bro, it's lazy.
Opportune. It's opportunistic.
No.
It packs a punch. It's like you
100%.
don't want this right now.
But
I'm a hold back. You said I have to come. I warned you that.
But bro,
Oh,
I
gosh.
swear to God,
It's the size of this.
kinda. So, righty would be far more like reserved and everything else. Like freaking keep myself to myself over here. I'm only gonna freaking get involved if it's something entertaining. Whereas lefty is more like
Anything
a
will do.
freaking Costco's worker giving out free samples. Like, take it. You want some? You want some? Here, take it. That's literally. Bro, I swear to God.
I love that there's just like, there's a good thing on that, which is that you have to pay membership to get those samples, you know what I mean? You could have just gone with like the person outside the train station and handed out leaflets, you know what I mean? You went with a slightly classier approach. We had to dig for the classiness in there. I love that.
We're fat boys in nature, bro. Like,
Yeah, man.
so, but as well, like, bro, they're just pushy with it, and that's how lefty is. He's just always offering it. Like, bro, if you're getting pre-cum, it's not from righty. I can guarantee you. You can track it.
Lefty's just like,
Me?
I'm ready, boss man. I got you.
It's literally like that little puppy. Like, did somebody say walk, out? What? I'm already at the tip. I'm already at the tip.
You're going for a walk and it's just a stiff breeze, and Lefty's like, what? Right, he's just like, this is why I don't get involved, man. Like, what's wrong with you, man? Like, this you. Man.
Right, he's like,
This you, bro.
right, he's not even at the door yet, mate. Like
Jeez, bro. Like, come on, man. Like, it's 7 a.m, mate. Like, behave yourself, you know what I mean?
But again, I do not understand. Like, you would think from a logic standpoint, both would drain an equal rate, or they would take turns. But no, not from my experience.
I mean, you would think the one that would be closest to the body would be the one that would go up first, you know, for the start. shit popping off, you know what I mean? You think it'd be closer to the exit systems?
I don't know.
Is this where your OnlyFans becomes you, just like a high like this, like one of those like super slow-mo cameras, just on your nuts? It's like, oh, Lefty does go on quick time.
It's more like the mental battle that's like, dude, you're on camera. Do not actually go back and check what your current circumstances are sitting at, so you can better explain.
I just like that you just like from what I hear, there's a classy service going on here, even though we're handing out free samples, right?
Yeah.
You got to pay membership for those free samples, so they're just samples, really.
Oh yeah, it's
but
not
also
complete
you've got like this superior mind-muscle connection over your testes. Just in real time, it's like you plugged into the matrix. Like, yeah, right, you're moving slow, man.
Yeah. But bro, like, you must notice like the difference in like in symmetry, like in yourself. Like, so like, if I looked at, I've got bad eyes, so this is probably a terrible analogy. But like, if I can look further to the left or right in one direction than the other, so like my body's not symmetrical. It doesn't work the exact same. Like if I'm shaving, I can see further around one side, and it's easier for me to shave than it is on the other side.
Ah, yeah.
Right. Again, unsymmetrical. So my eyeballs are unsymmetrical. My balls are unsymmetrical. Like, it all doesn't line up, bro. But yeah, I managed to function.
Just like a peach with a lump on it.
It's a friggin' like a Picasso, bro. I'm just like friggin' just abstract.
It's like a plum that's slightly melted on the right side.
Pretty much. No, but it's melted on the left side.
No,
right side's firm.
Their right would be your left.
See, this is why it's all a matter of perspective.
And
what's coming up
on this episode, bro?
We are actually meant to be doing a podcast. And on this podcast, we're talking about breakups from a man's perspective. Like, it's very rare to kind of hear it from a man's side, or just to, at least for me anyway, to see like how men get through shit. I'm not somebody that's been in freaking loads of relationships or whatever. And it's interesting to think about it. Obviously, everybody's got their different experiences in that, but everybody copes with things differently as well. So kind of exploring coping mechanisms and coping methods and just understanding why you do shit and the healing process in itself, it's an interesting topic to talk to, and to me it's valuable anyway.
Why are you dropping S-bombs, bro?
Because we just had a whole massive rant about
where
our
we
testes.
Didn't swear though, man.
Yeah.
Testes is an okay word, it's biology, man. So men's breakups, shit.
It is that kind of situation, isn't it?
Shit. Sorry, I felt left out. This is what happens when you get your heart broken.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Everything fall down. It's not that bad.
On that note, run intro!
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Perspective Chasers podcast.
Oh, sweet God.
I'm David and I've stolen his thunder.
And I'm John and I'm being held hostage. Please help. Blink, blink, blink. Right, so as we said, we're talking about breakups from men's perspectives.
Let's speak about symmetry, bro. That's what I got from it.
Let's speak about symmetry. Well, life is very unsymmetrical in many instances.
Is that the right word? Anyways, carry on.
Maybe.
It doesn't matter.
Well, symmetrical is the same on either side.
Yeah, but I mean, is the word grammatically correct? Unsymmetrical.
Well, yeah, if something's not the same on each side, it's...
No, you know, it's like imperfect. You wouldn't say unperfect.
But would you say...
Is it not asymmetrical?
Maybe.
Drop a comment. Let me know which one it is.
Everybody's a critic. But, hey ho.
So.
So, like, obviously, you've been through breakups, I haven't. So
don't know who that reflects worse on, to be honest, but yeah, that's true.
I mean, one of us has a kid.
I've had breakups with girlfriends, breakups with food, breakups with myself.
When did you break up with food, and when did your waistline get informed? Because I don't think it ever got the message.
After my first breakup, actually, I became a massive under-eater. Boom.
For about 2 days.
No, for about 2 goddamn years.
Okay, but then, so we knew each other within that period and everything else. And while we've always been big fellas,
yeah, I got that dog in me. It was tasty.
You never got to the point where I was afraid that you needed your next meal, and do you know what I mean? Like, whereas from you're saying like you was food deprived for nigh on 2 years, where to actually look at that from a literal standpoint, the amount of weight loss that would happen in that time, but then was it more the fact that the food that you was going for, although it was really calorie dense, so...
Boom. Put it in perspective, first relationship was a long one, 8.5 years, ended when the partner I was with cheated on me, which caused a lot of domino effects, but one of the big domino effects was that I was extremely mentally stressed, and that's where I found out that when I'm extremely mentally stressed, it becomes an appetite suppressant. And I become more of an under-eater than over-eater, like most people typically would. But I also have a history of being an over-eater. That's why I was a beefy boy.
Here's a question. From the mental side of it and looking back, is it a kind of aspect of this is a part of my life that I can control? Or is it a case of I just don't want to eat? Or is it a case of I'm going to get a revenge body? Like what?
No.
What's the thought process? Do you see what I mean?
It's just the mental stress was too much. And relapsed into certain habits, so I started smoking as well. Both of them combined became quite an extreme appetite suppressant. Mm. And one of the biggest things that I wanted to do was to distract the brain, and to distract the brain, I just used action. So I would work 8 hours a day, and then I was in a transition period in the career, so I would do shifts for 8 hours, then take on clientele on top, teach classes, all in the fitness industry, which is energy consuming. Mm. And then to distract the brain, I would then train myself. And then I would do that excessively. So I would train to 2 to 3 hours to the point that it's like self-destruction. All on a meal a day. Because there is a point where you realize that, okay, I do need something. Even if I'm not massively hungry, I need something in the body. Mm. But that would be about it. So like the first month of doing that, like after the breakup, I did drop close to 10 kilos. Like, it was quite a stark change. Mm. You know, bearing in mind I was, 140 at the time, so I was hefty. Mm. I had many dogs in me. Hot dogs. Junkyard dogs. Like, any kind of dog. Corn dog. Like, chili dog. Anything. So it was like a big change, but it was never like an active like revenge body thing. It was just like, oh, we're not doing certain things and we're not coping well, because all I wanted to do was just stop thinking and stop feeling, which is a very cliche thing. But if you go through an extreme stress, that's what happens. There's an immediate response, and you will roll with the tides of that response before you start unpacking everything and going, oh, there's a problem here. But that became like a long-term thing where I've started to come out of it now, but like I got very accustomed to running myself on very little for quite a while. And then that evolved into doing the same thing, but then, as you said, then the calorific meals would come in, where you would run yourself to death for a day or two, and then all of a sudden you'd go, I'm going to have a 3-course pizza. You know what I mean? And I'm going to eat 5,000 calories in a sitting. And eventually you kind of balance out somehow. Not in the most healthiest of ways, but balance is balance, I guess. Mm. And that was one of the long-lasting effects, really. It took quite a while for me to really punch back out at it.
So, out of the breakups that you've had, what would you say has been like the biggest bridge you've had to cross for yourself to kind of get over the breakups? Like, obviously you've had a couple, so it's like, what's the common denominator amongst them? Like, okay, cool, like this is...
All 3 of them were quite different, to be honest. First one was the hardest, just because of the nature of it. The second one was destined to fail anyways, to be quite frank. I hadn't really unpacked everything from the first one, so I wasn't exactly in the best place. I just don't think we were destined to get on. To be honest with you, it became a bit toxic. It just became very argumentative, very hot-headed, just not a good place to be. So I just pulled the trigger on just ending that before it became more of a problem. Like, it's again, you go from one stress into another one. It's not necessarily a good thing. You know, after an 8.5-year stint with someone, and to go through, like, it is a trauma, I suppose, when, you know, to be cheated on, to not unpack all of that, to be single for 6 months and to jump into something else, is not a great timeline.
Well, I suppose that would...
Because you haven't actually done any healing at all. 6 months, like, think about it, the first 2 months of that, you're adjusting to, oh, this is my new life. And then you probably got a month or so where you're like, I'm good, I'm going to get back on the horse. And then you probably got a month where it all falls apart again. And all of a sudden you're in a relationship. And it's like, where have you unpacked?
Yeah, but
like you haven't actually really processed and healed and actually worked on yourself. So to then jump into something with someone when you're not the best version of you, so it's not got a chance because you're not there. You know what I mean? Like you're literally just you're distracting yourself, deceiving yourself.
So this would be the thing. It's like, I suppose the kind of question that leaves me with is like, what would be the time frame to be considered a rebound? Would it just be the first relationship that you get in after a relationship? Do you know what I mean? Like, because like you said, 6 months ain't a lot of time. So if you're taking time to like, first of all, heal and get over and kind of find a new normal in life, and then you've got to actually remember who you are. Like, without that person and on your own, and what you actually want to do with your life.
The thing is, though, it's a good question, because rebound is something you would naturally associate with, like, the one-night stand that comes after. Which also wasn't great, to be quite frank. But, like, it's not something I would necessarily associate with a relationship, but it's a valid term. Because that's what that one felt like. And if you was to try and define it, it probably was.
So this is the thing, like, is it one of those ones where... that a rebound's defined by a time frame, or is it more that psychological process? Like, have you actually moved on from that relationship mentally to the point where the relationship or even a one night stand wouldn't be considered a rebound because you're over that situation, that you've taken everything you're going to take from it? And
I think based on what I went through is psychological. I don't think time would have made a difference. The only difference time would have made is how much I actually worked on myself, because I went into it blind. You walk into it thinking I'm all good, without realizing that you've done nothing. Like you're still actually kind of grieving, and you're still a bit messed up, and you're still not quite right. And you're questioning yourself more than anything else, and you just walk straight into another one. It's like, well, how's this going to end? Like when I look back, it was never going to end any differently than it did. It was always going to be a problem. Whether I blame that person for certain things, I do. But a lot of it was also on me. You know, it takes two people to argue. It takes two people to create like that negative, toxic environment.
Yeah.
You can put a lot of it on one of them, sure. Some people are just not great people. But at the same time, it takes a second person to be willing to sit in that environment. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's like... Just to kind of reiterate that point, because that is such a valuable point of, like, have the consideration of, like, what did you do in that situation? Was you willing to sit in the proverbial poop and be in that toxic environment or whatever else, and how long for? Because, again, that's another big thing, I guess, with breakups and that, is that it's very easy to say what the other person done wrong, opposed to look at what you've done wrong on yourself, like, oh, where did I mess up in this relationship? Did I actually give the relationship all I wanted? Was I 1 foot in, 1 foot out from day one? Like, it's always easier, like, well, they've hurt me, they've done this, So, like, and again, it's going to take time before you get to that point where you can have an honest look back at, like, okay, was I a decent partner?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like, when you look back, like, being cheated on is awful. It's awful. Because it creates a lot of issues in yourself. So you get a lot of insecurities, a lot of trust issues, a lot of self-confidence issues, all sorts of nonsense that come with it, right? Because someone done that to you. They were unfaithful. That's a big deal. Especially, and it gets worse with length of time. When you think that 8 years of your life, like that, because someone done one action. That's the thing you work off initially, right? Before you can unpack anything. That's the initial truth you're confronted with. Is 8.5 years of my life have gone like that. That I've built with this one person because they've done one action. Simple as that. Whether you end up with them or not, right? It's going to change everything. Because those issues are going to eat away at you. But as someone who's unpacked that, it's taken a while. I still realize that I played a part in that. Because there's usually a reason that someone is unfaithful. Now, I'm pretty sure there are some people out there, and I say people, not just one gender, who are just damn right nasty people. And they're just going to create drama. They're just going to create problems. There's going to be spiteful people. I get that. But on the whole, if someone decided to go and be unfaithful, something drove them there. That's really hard to unpack. Because what actually drove someone after 8 years to go and cheat?
So,
like, yeah, it's
along with that,
you've got the forbidden fruit. Don't get me wrong, right? Everyone window shops. I know that's a pretty crass term, but it's the truth, right? It's that proverbial, you know, well, you already have one of these. You don't need it. You can't touch, but I can still look.
Well, I think it's that kind
But to
of
go and
innate
actually,
human curiosity
yeah,
as well.
but to actually go through the action is a different thing. That's giving into temptation, but what forced you to look at temptation in the first place? Is everything actually okay at home? High chance, it's not. We didn't really argue. We weren't that kind of people. We were quite placid, like it was actually quite a happy place, but was I giving them enough attention? No. Bearing in mind this was during lockdown times when I couldn't work. They had to work. So I mean, like, I'm having my own little kind of mental battle where I'm reverting to being a teenager again, staying up all night playing games. They've got a job to do. So at that point, what do you come home to if you're a partner who's still having to do an 8-hour day in a world that we don't understand anymore, and your partner is just waking up and it's 5 in the afternoon? Like, there's a disconnect. It starts to fracture, but you don't notice it because you just think, oh, they know me. They like, you know, it is what it is. It's subtle things that become a bigger problem over time because they become habit and they get bigger and they get bigger and they get bigger. And if you don't address them, something's going to happen.
But see, this is the thing, and this kind of gets into the element of like picking your partner and things like that. So it's how many people see red flags in the beginning, they ignore them, they don't address them, and they snowball over time and this and like, or how many people think, oh, I can fix him or I can change him or I'll be the exception to the rule.
That's an awful mistake to make.
Yeah, but
it's
one we all do, no?
Oh god, yeah. There is nothing more interesting / appealing than mystique and mystery. Sometimes, like not knowing everything about someone. That's enough to drive someone nuts sometimes. And actually that becomes like I really like this person now and I want this person because I wonder what they're like. And that's physical and it's mental. It takes a long time to fully know everything about someone. And even then you may not ever know every single thing, right?
Okay, here's a question though. So, but do you think it's about how we spend that subsequent time together? So like, most people these days, if two people are spending time together, they're not sitting in conversation. They're sitting shoulder to shoulder, looking at a screen, or they're doing something together. So they're not covering much ground in terms of their bond, this, that, and everything. Like you said, you was literally living a different life at that time. You were playing games and sleeping during the day and waking up at night and da-da-da-da. They're working a normal job. And so there's a massive disconnect and everything else. How many people let that go on until it's a problem, opposed to being with somebody where you can actually have that comfortable conversation and be like, look, like, I ain't seen you enough, this, that, or whatever else. And like, it's like ignoring the elephant in the room, and I don't mean you. Like, if it's not going to go away.
You know, the thing about that, man, is like, I was with someone that I thought I could have those chats with, and I'm sure they felt the same. doesn't change it.
Mm.
Because the awareness isn't there. You both feel like you can talk about anything, but the awareness isn't there. The self-awareness isn't there. And on their side, the ability to speak up before they went and done something wasn't there either. So both of us caused that to fail. Yes, they're the one that committed a heinous act. They're the one that will be remembered as the person that done the bad thing. And I will be remembered as the victim of that. But that in itself is a problem, because for a long time I had a victim complex of why me? What did I do wrong? But then it took me a long time. Definitely took the rebound relationship to start really unpacking everything. Probably even longer than that. But you look back on it and you just think, actually, yeah, like, there was big problems there. That's why it happened.
So, with the circumstances that first long-term one ended under and everything else, has that left you with... I guess it'd be hard not to leave you with some forms of like trauma or questions about like...
100%.
So like, even for myself, because I've never been in that kind of situation and things like that, like for me it's more... I find it hard to understand that somebody would have a genuine love for me like that. Like that, for me, because I've never been in like a proper relationship and things like that, it would be very hard for me to get over that initial hurdle. Like you would have to really convince me to believe it in the first place. So then, if years down the line, you then break that betrayal in itself is that's gonna hurt more than the act itself. It's like...
Yeah. 100%. The act is forgotten to me. It's the aftermath that's still there. Like, the trust issues don't necessarily go away. They get a little bit easier. But you still question if you will ever trust someone the same way again. And the biggest one for me was like, I've had 2 relationships since. And again, it took a little while to realize, but like, I definitely did not love them the same way.
Here's a question.
And I actually question if I was in love. Even though I've said it, I genuinely do question if I was ever there. And initially on the outside, you might think, well, that's quite harsh. Like, why would you waste their time like that? Not you, because you know me well enough.
Yeah.
But an outside looking in would be like, what do you mean you never loved him? You said it, but you didn't feel it. It's like, in the moment you think you do. But it's when things are said and done and everything is over and you're kind of riding on yourself with yourself again and you're rebuilding, that you go, wait a minute. It wasn't even in the same bracket. The first one was absolutely there. The other 2 weren't. It wasn't even in the same ballpark.
I think again, like this is the thing as well for myself, where I've kind of put the idea of love and relationships on that pedestal of like, well, it should be this freaking thing that shouldn't be that hard to kind of nurture or whatever. So it should naturally have its own flame for you to fan. If you've got to find all the kindling and everything else, it's not meant to work in the first place. And if you try to make it work and it goes to rubbish after, what were you going to expect? So,
100%.
But again, that takes you out of the game too much. So is there a sense of overcorrection? But also, I guess I'm kind of asking this for myself in a sense of like, in the first instance, did you go in with an air of naivety and love too deeply, too quickly, or like...
The first relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considering how it ended and everything else, was there too much trust in that first one to where things got too comfortable that allowed that situation to happen? And then an overcorrection in subsequent relationships where it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to dial it right back to where I'm not going to get that involved and trust you that much that I'm going to allow myself to get hurt. So then realistically, the ground, the balance ground, as with anything, should have been within the middle, but that's a hard place to learn. So again, if you was to look at your responsibility in that first relationship in that, was part of it being a bit more observant in how...
You have responsibilities in any relationship. It doesn't matter if it's your first, your 10th, your 100th, your last. It takes 2 to tango. Was there an overcorrection in the last 2? Yes. 100%. Again, the trust issues are there. So there's that. The guard is really high. So your ability to let yourself go as deeply isn't there anymore. Because you resist it. Because you know what the pain feels like. So you don't want to go back there. You don't want to have those horrible conversations where you actually are hurting someone's feelings. Like, you don't want to do that to them, and you definitely don't want it to happen to you. So you kind of almost trap yourself in a way. And I've had that twice where, like, the love word will pop up and the instinct is to go, hey, I love you too. And you, for a second, you do think, I do feel it. But then you realise how easily that word is just thrown around.
Yeah, and see, and this is why I say, like, for me, I've got that word for me is on a pedestal. Like, the only person I'll throw the word around with is my daughter. And again, even to unpack that though, like, that's because, so I was explaining this to somebody before, like, when you offer your love to your child, whether they reciprocate it or not, doesn't matter. The fact that you love them and you know that, that's a good feeling in itself. It's like, you can hate me if you want, but I know I'm doing right by loving you because I'm your parent.
Correct.
Whereas if you love somebody that isn't your child, that doesn't love you back, you then feel wrong for loving somebody because you've got no outside obligation to that. So then that social stigma of like, oh, well, you love somebody that doesn't love you and you want what you can't have kind of thing and everything else. Like that all adds to that kind of negative portion of it. Do you know what I mean?
I think the answer to your question about the first one being naive, if it's your first relationship, I think there's always going to be a touch of naivety. Because it's unknown ground.
But see, I reckon it's either going to be one end or the other. Either too cautious or too trusting.
Correct. I was too trusting, potentially. I don't know. Again, unpacking it and looking back, I don't think I was too trusting. I think I was too blasé about maintaining a relationship. Because it had been that long that you taken for granted is an understatement. You know, for 8 years you've woken up knowing that person is with you. Vice versa. You become so damn... I literally said the word and I've forgotten it. Like, you take everything for granted. You just assume they're going to be there. You just assume they're going to be loyal. You assume you're both going to be faithful. You assume you're both going to talk things through and actually confront what's going on. But that's not how it works. It doesn't work like that because neither of you have self-awareness anymore.
The thing is as well, like, when people are at, like, the beginning, especially, like, the beginnings of a relationship, the honeymoon period or whatever else, it's related to something else that hopefully us guys can probably relate a bit more. Like, you don't take out your new car and think, oh, cool, I'm already going to change it. Like, you enjoy that one. So when you're in a new relationship, you're besotted by that one. You're involved in, you're not thinking about, is it going to exit my relationship for the foreseeable future or whatever else. You don't think that there's going to be an end to it from the beginning. So you kind of walk in with blinders on to those scenarios. Like, okay, cool. Again, some people have baggage and they're looking for an out from the get-go. Everybody has their different problems that they've got to deal with.
Yeah.
But if you're always looking for that out and everything else, it's going to be clear to see for it. But again, each to their own.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like, the main thing for me, though, is, like, right, if you go through a breakup, especially, like, a really bad one, man, you got to ride the tide for a bit.
But what's considered a bad breakup? Because, like
there
are, on both sides, again, on both sides of the fence, there are crazies out there.
I would say, like, to me, a bad breakup is one that affects you really heavy. One that knocks you, like, hits you emotionally, hits you mentally. But dude, you could break up with someone after a week and you're probably going to feel nothing. Like, it happened, whatever, bye, see you later, right? But you could have also been like, actually, I've known this person a really long time. And I've been into them for a long time and we were together for a week and I thought I was there, but then boom. They're two completely different things, right? It's the same space of time. So to me, like, the bad part, the adverse part is how it affects you. And if it mashes you up, like my first one did, for example, where I just lost my nut. That's when you ride the tide. Like, really ride the tide.
It reminds me of another thing that I see where it's like, when's a body not a body? kind of thing, you know. And it's like, it's almost ties into what you're saying there of like, sometimes it can feel like a relationship before it's ever classed a relationship, or it's not even ever classed as a relationship, but it has that energy about it, has that vibe about it. So then if it does go somewhere, or even if it doesn't go anywhere and it just stops, it can feel like that freaking breakup, or it can feel as if it's a more significant breakup, because although on paper it said one thing, the feeling that you've had is completely different.
Absolutely.
And the whole scenario, again, like, we play things out in our head for the long term. You don't take out a new car expecting to get the next one. You're like, cool, I'm going to enjoy this one. Da, 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 da.
Absolutely.
So like, when you're in that new relationship and you're out to enjoy it, and that you're not looking for how it's going to end, or like this, that, and everything else. You're more looking like, oh, this person's amazing, and
yeah, absolutely. It's obviously it's a complex. It's a weird thing. Like, I think what's really, really important is that you just take time. And in a weird way, like, when I look back from my own experiences, in a way, I wish that anything my brain said do, I would have done the opposite. Because I think I would have been better off. Like, if I had stayed single longer, I think I would have been better off sooner. Mm-hmm. You know, if I didn't destroy myself in the gym every day, I probably would have had a healthier outlook of things at the time.
Do you know
like, if I didn't seek to replace with a lot more social activities, I probably wouldn't have got to a point where I felt like I was getting too close to alcohol issues. You know what I mean? Like, I think I would have been a bit more at peace.
So
but
this
hindsight is a beautiful thing.
100%.
And that's why it's easy for me to sit here now and actually talk about it quite easily. It's just like, that's what I mean by, like, you kind of got to ride the tide. Like, you're going to go a bit nuts. And sometimes it's instant. But sometimes it could be like myself, where, like, you know, that first month it was just a bit more, you know, like self-destruction, but it's like, yeah, it's going to happen. But then I kind of leveled out a little bit, jumped into a relationship. It's when I came out of the second one that I lost my nut. Because I hadn't unpacked anything. And you're talking a year later, maybe a little bit longer. And that's when all of a sudden my train went, oh no, we've gone well off the rails and this isn't you anymore. You know what I mean? And that was the patch where I was going out 3-4 times a week and getting absolutely leveled. Going to work hungover and just still grinding things out because it's all I know. Now, grinding things out and working a lot of hours, that's me. Getting drunk 3-4 times a week, not me. I do like a good night out. 3-4 times a week, bit too much for your boy. And all of a sudden you're causing yourself more problems than you need. Because you're masking so many things, but you're also causing damage, because now you're causing financial issues. You're causing yourself more stress. And all of this stress is more of a distraction from you actually doing the one thing you need to do, which is process. Heal. Like, actually just take the damn time you need to go, hey, do you know what? I feel these things. It's okay to feel these things. I don't like them. But I know at some point, I'm going to be all right. And I have coping mechanisms that are actually healthy, that are actually reliable, like my friends I've known for 10 years or however long, or my family, or therapy, for example, is a good thing. Don't be too ashamed to go get some damn therapy. That's something I probably could have done sooner, to be fair.
One sec. So I need to interrupt you because the points are stacking up here. Remind me to come back to the therapy one if I lose the train of thought. But from the instance, oh damn it, what was the first one? All right, we'll start with the therapy. With therapy, how much have you actually done therapy?
No.
All right.
Well,
like,
years and years ago, but very, very unrelated.
So like with our chats and that, they can be therapeutic when we just vent to each other. Sometimes we just need to hear each other out and everything else. And we're like, bro, I've got you, I've got time, da 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 da. But with a therapist, and that, they're on a clock, they're running a meter and everything else. So like supposedly when you get to that point of like breakthrough and they're like, time's up. Like it can leave you proverbially blue balls to bring it back down to the beginning of the pod.
But it probably can at the start, but like I know people that do therapy and stuff like that, right? If you end something on a breakthrough, and now you got to wait a whole week to go back to therapy, what's going to be in your head for the rest of that week? It's that breakthrough you just had. So that in itself, to me, is, again, outside looking in, because I haven't done therapy in my adult life anyways, that's probably a good thing, because that can be your focus. That actually, no, there's a way out of this, and I am going to start making progress, and I'm learning how to cope with things. I'm learning that the big thing for me about therapy is it drills into you that it's okay to chat about it. Like, that's the biggest thing that you could probably take away from something like that is it's okay to A, talk about it, especially as dudes, because we're rubbish at it. And B, it's okay to feel it. Because again, we're rubbish at that. We find it embarrassing. When it's not the case. Any normal good dude is not going to put you down for that. Like, we're so close. We're basically brothers. We might laugh at first and make a joke, but when you realize, he's not good, it stops. And all you're going to do is listen, because it's a genuine thing. You're going to validate it. You're not going to make the person feel embarrassed about feeling that way. Like, you're allowed to feel. And that, to me, validates that whole thing. So that's just one step in helping you go, okay, unbox this. Let's start talking. Let's start thinking. Let's start sifting through this madness before it becomes a problem.
But that's the thing. I think the most important thing is, like, people need somebody to talk to. So if you haven't got that bro, if you haven't got that friend to talk to, or whatever else, if you haven't got a family member or whatever else, it is a good thing. But it is one of those things where you are going to be on a clock, and it's that kind of relationship where it's transactional.
Everything's on the clock.
Yes and no, but like
but it is. It's very vague. You can have the closest friends in the world who will do everything for you. You're still on the clock, dude. People got things to do. There's life, bro. And when you feel bad, that becomes very, very prevalent in your head. Like, everyone's time is limited. So, like, I don't necessarily think it's like the most valid of things when talking about therapy. Yeah, it's a limited time. They're professionals. It is their job. But at the same time, they don't know you. They're bound by a code of ethics, so they can't chat about you. It's like one of the safest places you could possibly be.
But I don't know, because it's, to me anyway, there's a portion of it which is almost like just problem proposing but not solving. So like, if you get to the point where like you're at a point of breakthrough but then your time's up, like at least like if me and you are venting about something or whatever else and you're at like almost your proverbial climax of the vent, and I'm just like, alright bro, I gotta shoot. Like, but even if it's something valid, like I gotta go pick up little one or whatever else, our relationship is deep enough that I'll make that extra time for you. And whereas, because that therapist relationship is still always going to be far more transactional. Again, it's like saying like getting a takeaway or fast food or whatever else. Like, yeah, it's not great food, but it can fill a void when you're hungry and that. Like, if you don't have friends and if you don't have like decent people that you can talk to around you, therapy is going to be something that you can kind of supplement in. But it's not that, like, to me anyway, you shouldn't avoid talking to the people close to you because of therapists. Like, it would do better to talk to the people close to you and actually process things, because they're the ones that are actually going to help you through your life and everything else. They're not the transactional relationship.
Yeah, but the counter argument to that is that the transactional relationship is the neutral one. They don't know you, so they can't judge you. Even your closest people can judge you, bro. Whether they mean to or not. Whether they mean to or not. Like, whether it's a negative or a positive judgment. Still there, right? With a therapist, it's not there.
Right, we completely lost the train of thought there, so we're going to try to jump back on the train to end this episode out, because it's been a long one, but thank you for bearing with if you have stuck around this long. Is there any more kind of advice that you would give for somebody going through a breakup in terms of, like, so if we was to say the highlights are time is kind of irrelevant if you haven't done the work on yourself. It's going to be the biggest thing, whether you've been broken up for a week, 6 months, a year, 2 years. If you haven't done the work in that time,
I wouldn't say irrelevant, but it's not really something you can measure. The measure is how you feel and what you've done on yourself, not the time. Because it could be a quicker process for some than others. Some it could be a couple of years. Some it could be a couple of months. You just don't know. The measure is how good are you? And that should always be the measure, because the important thing after a breakup is you. To me, that's my perspective when I go back on it. The one thing I neglected was myself. You can't measure time for that. That's all feeling. That's all balance. That's all, where are you at? You know what I mean? But to be honest, we could probably do another episode about advice I would give. But like, I would kind of break it down into actually work on yourself. Be with yourself for a bit. Don't hate everyone if it's a bad breakup, if it's a negative breakup. Not everyone's like that. And don't let it put you off actually trying to find your happiness with someone if that's what you want to do somewhere down the line. Don't let it be the negative. Let it be a positive. Learn the lessons from the breakup, because it will help you when you actually find someone decent and actually who's worth your time. And it will actually help you heal a little bit as well when you realize that it wasn't just them. There was actually some you in that as well. And it will probably make you a better partner in the long run.
Mm. And is there anything you would say to avoid after a breakup?
Yeah. Anything addictive. Nights out, things like that are probably not your best friend. Like, that you probably could measure a little bit more time. But like, there's a level of rawness where you're like, you don't need this.
Just before, the train just pulled back into the station, right?
Oh, choo choo.
So, what I was going to say before was like, there's so many instances in which us as humans, we look for that path of least resistance. Mm. So when you're looking for, you're feeling wounded or whatever else, you're looking for those instant gratifications. What's going to make me feel good? Those high calorie foods, those quick nights out, the booze, the this, the that. It's all like, oh, well, you feel bad. Here's a quick resolution. But like you were saying earlier on, that's where your pitfalls are. That's where you end up spending the time avoiding dealing with the growth and the problems that you need to deal with within yourself to actually move on. So I think that's just an innate human characteristic to always kind of look for that path of least resistance, but it's not, the easy way isn't always the best way. And when you're in a damaged position, it's hard to remember that, and it's easy to lose sight of it.
Path of least resistance, fairly accurate. Basically, all the things you listed have one thing in common. They're mind-numbing. They're distractions. They're all things that will stop you thinking about the bad thing. Because if I'm chowing down on a pizza, I am not thinking about how hurt I am. I am thinking, this is good, man. I like this. This is good. It's dopamine. I'm not thinking about the hurt. I'm thinking about the calories. The pepperoni, the stuffed crust, the garlic and herb dip, the sides that I've got that I'm not going to eat today, but I'm definitely going to have for breakfast. It's the same with a night out. You're not thinking about the bad times. You're thinking about the immediate that's in front of you. It's a dopamine hit. It's mind-numbing. It's the TV show you watch. It's the game you play. It's, even though it's healthy to a degree, unless you go extreme, it's the workout.
It's escapism. It's escaping into anything but your own existence.
Numbing. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the path of least resistance, per se. I think it's the path that makes the most sense at the start. No,
because the reason I say like the path of least resistance,
it's like the path of most trickery in a way. Because the thing is, I get why you say least resistance, but it's actually going to make it worse for you down the line.
100%. But
and that's not really least resistance. You're making it worse. You see what I'm saying? It's like you're taking. You want to go dead straight, but instead, actually, I've walked 50 miles east to then come back around to the top point.
The thing is, though, it's the reason it's the path of least resistance, at least to me, is because that escapism, that night of drinking or the meal or whatever it is, having that and escaping into that is easier than dealing with the problem. Now, you can't escape time. You have to experience the moment. So you can either distract yourself or you can experience it. So in terms of like, what's the path of least resistance or the best kind of experience for our life and our experience? It's the one that you shouldn't do. And like you were saying, your brain tells you a whole lot of things at the beginning of things that you shouldn't do, people you shouldn't text, things you shouldn't do, this, that, and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
Like, but I think that's just the kind of survival mechanism in the body. It's just like, this is the easier route.
It is. The big thing to remember with that, right, is when that dopamine hits over, what happens?
You're back to zero, bro.
Literally. And it's zero,
well,
zero.
Actually, to be fair, I'd say you're probably worse than back to zero because you're coming from a high. Now your lower feels lower.
You inch closer to rock bottom, to be quite frank.
Whether you do or don't, I reckon you at least feel it.
You dig closer to rock bottom in those moments than you do to all-time highs.
100%. But
even if you don't hit either of them, you're edging closer to rock bottom than you are to all-time high. Because now you're hungover, now you're poorer, you're now in physical pain as well as mental pain because you went too heavy. And you've done something dumb, right? You've done something worse to your body to mask the pain of actually sitting with your thoughts for a second. And guess what's going to happen when you wake up? It's going to come straight back. Like, there's no easy, gradual, oh, I feel bad. It just comes and absolutely punches you upside the head. Now it's 10 times worse. Because I got to sit here with this, because I can't distract myself right now, because I've just woken up. And guess what? I've got things to do today. In my head. Now I'm more susceptible to them as well because I'm hungover. So my brain chemistry is already altered because I altered it. Now it's adverse. Now it's a negative. And now the heartbreak I was already feeling and the self-loathing I was like the kind of the trust issue, all that. Now I have self-loathing.
Yeah.
So now I've added one more negative on top of like a bonfire.
So like the only thing I could compare it to is like it's like taking a painkiller for an ongoing condition or ongoing pain. Where it's just like, okay, well, once these lights are really giving up today, once the pains like comes back, it now feels far worse because you've had the break from it.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be a good point to wrap up the episode because I don't think the lights have any more in them. I don't know if we've got much more in us.
Darkness.
But I think it's going to be only fair if you drop a seed for this episode, considering you introed it, you dropped the most insights from your perspective on the breakups. I'm going to leave the seed completely in your hands, considering you wanted to take control of the beginning.
Wow. That's petty. That's really petty, bro. Really petty. What's the seed? How do you normally do this part? Normally I've stopped listening to this part.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Normally you do the seed, I'm just there.
So the whole concept for the seed is it's an insightful thought or something that is going to grow down the line. So like something habit building or something like, normally it's something along the lines of like, take 10 minutes to reflect on either your actions towards your life or how other people might perceive you, or in this instance it could be...
I'll give it a punt.
Go on.
I'll give it a punt. Right? I'll try. Right? It's not going to be as good as yours. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not you. I'll try.
I think the world would appreciate you not being me, to be fair, brother.
I don't want to be it. I'm not going to finish that sentence. We spoke about dopamine, right? So if we're talking about like habit breaking, right? What dopamine sources can you actually use that will actually enhance your healing process instead of actually negatively affecting? What good can you do for yourself that's actually going to help you instead of dragging you back down?
That's fair. Like there are like the first one that comes to mind, obviously for me, is exercise. But again, everything has its unhealthy amounts. So how far are you going before it's a dopamine hit, and then you're going into the point where you're actually depreciating your dopamine levels and everything else?
But that's why I quite like that seed, because it's actually a good thing. It's not even just applicable to breakups, but in general. Like,
Yeah.
what good dopamine can you use to form good habits?
That's what the seed's meant to do. It's just enough to make you think about it, just like, well, actually, maybe there is something that I can do. Maybe I can start drinking a little bit more water in the mornings, or maybe there is something I can do a little bit that I can improve the caliber of my life for
Like
a very
drink
small...
tanks of water.
And be a tank.
Then you will become a tree.
But on that note, we're going to end the pod. All the best, and we'll catch you on the next one.